is Punksnugglybear, and we are back for episode 2, part 2 of Is It Worth It? And we will be going over the game Wacky Racers. This is a cartoon that was translated into a game by Atlas, that is the designer of the game. It is based off of the old Hanna Barbera cartoons, infamously known for some of the old Scooby-Doos. This one is about a race that takes place with multiple racers. They can all do evil things to each other. The storyline follows the evil character of the game, aka Dick Dastardly, and his dog Muttley. Dick Dastardly is getting into all of these crazy situations, and it's up to Muttley to come save the day. I was slightly disappointed when I first popped in the game because with the name of Wacky Racers, I'm thinking it's going to be a top-down, just like how Micro Machines or Rock and Roll Racing. I was really looking forward to that sort of chaos because it's a cartoon that I grew up to love and control, and I think they had a good opportunity with this style and with the characters to create a very in-depth racing game. Unfortunately, it is another action-adventure platformer, very popular on the NES. A lot of people love these games, and NES had the major staple of having these games. A little bit of background history on the game. It was actually released in Japan in December of 91, and then the North American release got it in May of 92. Other games that Atlas had designed and helped release were some games such as Friday the 13th game, the Karate Kid, Major League Baseball, and NFL football, all for the NES. So we had a widespread. They did movie games before, and then they did some sports games. So it was definitely interesting to come into this game and play it and see how it feels. Now, going over the collection value of the game today, using price charting, looking at the price is based on today, it hovers around about $190 for a loose cartridge of it. And then I always like going back and double checking to see where they were at 10 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. 2008, this game wasn't on anybody's radar. It was a measly $15, so nobody really wanted to pick it up. Fast forward 4 years from then, 2012, you saw it hovering around the 110 range, and then in 2016 saw the highest price for this game at $210. Overall, level design, gameplay, and sound on this game is solid. The gameplay on it is pretty linear. That is a downside to it. So my two down points for the gameplay off the bat would be that one, it's not a racing game, and two, that it's linear. There's not really multiple stages. You're not climbing up ladders. You're not falling into things where it's a continuous level. It's pretty much where you find the end of the level, move on to the next level via ladder or via the checkpoint, as you can see up there, and then at the end of each level you come up into a boss. Level design wise, I like how though multiple levels can have different designs. You'll see coming up in the end of the game, there is a level where it's ice in the beginning of the portion of the level, and then it turns into a cloud level, which have different mechanics. So the ice you start slipping on, and the cloud you just start bouncing up and down on. In the bottom of the screen, you'll see some important key factors. You have the diamonds, which are just like coins or collections for any other game. You get 100, you get an extra life. You also will see that on the screen right now, you have that every time you start a new section or a new world, you get a different layout. So it has a different scenario. So this one, he's trapped. And I also like this little Easter egg they hid, that if you just let the character stand there, he does the insidious laugh, but for each level, if you stand there long enough, it'll have a special thing that it does. Such for this ice level, he turns into a little bit of an icicle. Moving from the diamonds, you have the health counter, which makes him look like a gargoyle in the bottom left, and then you have the 4 different options for what you use for the bones that you collect on screen. So the first two are options to level up your attack. Your initial attack is just a chomp, followed by the first attack, which is a bomb that has a trajectory thrown. So you have an arc when you throw the bomb, and then you have the bow, as I like to call it, or the bark, which is a straight angle, just cuts through everything, but takes a little bit of time to charge up. Third, you have the feather, which will allow you a move where you can float down with a feather tail. Almost reminds me of something like the Tanuki suit and stuff like that, so you have a slow glide down. And then the fourth and final one that you can use with your bones is the heart pickups. The heart pickups, you start off with 2 hearts, and then if you get 4 bones and you activate the heart, you get another heart. You can have a maximum of 6 hearts. So that's a really cool and interesting way of how this game is played, is that you get to choose when you want to activate what. I was a little confused though when I first played the game, because you start off with jump and attack, and then of course to use your bones you use the select button on your controller. That's something that is nifty. It's something that allows you to play the game how you want to play. Some levels I found the bomb was easier weapon to use for certain bosses versus the bark was easier to use on certain bosses. I also like how they included in later stages that there are some just enemies or objects on the screen that cannot be destroyed that will cause damage to you. At that point, that is something I find really cool. As in most games, the enemies are one hit, so you just have to hit them once and they will get off the screen. The difference between this game and say a game like Panic Restaurant is that if you get hit, you don't lose your current power-up. You only lose your current power-up when you lose all of your health. So that is something that's nice, that you don't have to panic too much, and then it's all just about managing the bones as resources. A lot of the time is I would bank up at least 4 of them to get to the heart level and hold on to that with my select power up for that level. So I usually would get first either the bomb or the bark, and then just try to coast through the level and pick up the hearts. I also like the extra 1-ups on the screen. They look like that you're a bear and not actually the dog Muttley. So the little things about this game have cool level design, cool sound design, just overall depiction of the game is really nice. And then the box art for this game is something that I think is definitely worth a collection piece. It's just a very simple box art. It has Dick Dastardly with Muttley in different positions, but it definitely has that feel of the old-time cartoons. Jumping back though from like level design and art back into the gameplay, one thing that I noticed about the bosses were they are very easily manipulated patterns. So as soon as you know the pattern and you have the right weapon, you can do these most of the time first try. But going into design and everything, I love the design, I love the character sprites, I love all of the little different animations that the game has. I love, like how I showed you in the beginning, that he does the evil laugh and everything. I love how you can tell each difference between all of the racers. Each one of the racers in the TV show are actually the boss for each one of these stages, so it's really nice to see that. And then also in terms of level design, how it breaks out into 3 different worlds. You have World A, World B, and World C. World A and B both have 3 levels. World C is the only one that has 4 levels. I think that is a really cool feature because that is something that adds variety for each one. Each one has its own different storyline, each has its own different little plot line, and each has its own little different ending. Overall, for sound design, I think sound design is, well, it doesn't have any high-pitched screaming in most of the games. It doesn't have any like out of the ordinary sounds. I think each sound design in each level has a unique sound. like I'm saying, just going back to the character sprites for a quick second, as you can see, there's a karate pig, as I like to call him. The Not much in terms of enemy sounds. The bomb goes off, you kill them. It's just more of background and just regular playthrough sounds, so I can't nick anything off that. I think it's really solid. I think that playing this game, I could just put on my headphones and sit down and just cruise through this game, and it sounds wonderful. I'd never had a point of where I was like, oh, I'm getting sick of the soundtrack. So that's something good for games like these, is just because really, if you're playing the game how it's supposed to be with sound, that's a make or break for a lot of games. Another thing to point out, that there isn't a lot of really big or areas of like tight platforming. Here's the first example later on into the game where we have some one-by jumps. Besides that, overall there wasn't too many difficult parts of the game. Like, I found that the game could probably be beaten in one sitting, but definitely has replay value in terms of how you want to approach each level, if you use the bomb versus the bark, and just really enjoying all of the backgrounds, the skylines, the character sprites. I think overall has a good feel to it. Now, in terms of what I would say comparative to other games, this game is something that is fairly easy. It's, like I said, you could sit down, complete this in a day, and you'd be spot on with this game. But it's something to say that if you have the childhood nostalgia factor of it, I know a lot of collectors are doing that, or going back and collecting for games that just bring with them in their childhood. More recently I picked up games such as Animaniacs and All Real Monsters, and it definitely changed my perspective of like, oh, okay, this is how this game plays out, and like, just for the idea that, oh, it's a game that I know from my childhood or used to grow up watching these shows, really has a soft spot in my heart for this game. This is something that I would definitely be looking to probably pick up to add to my NES collection. Overall, I would say it's a solid game. Once again, just going through another boss fight, just showing you the patterns of how sometimes it's just too easy. Most of the time you can move left and right and just throw a bomb. But sometimes you just gotta have games that are easy. Sometimes you just gotta have a game that you can throw into the system real quick, boot on, and really enjoy it. So overall, going down the list for gameplay, I would probably rank this game at about 7 out of 10, just because it is not a racing game, and just certain aspects of the bark and everything really throw me off. Level and box art, really sweet box art, really sweet level design. That's a 9 out of 10. And then sound, since it's good, solid, nothing too bad, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend adding this to your collection for any collector.